Funbi Fagade will be showing us key features in pivot tables and conditional formatting in Excel. Funbi is an accounting and IT professional and experienced programmer, systems analyst, and project and risk manager, and she has a lot of experience using Excel for data analytics. So we're very excited to have her here as our trainer today. Funbi has a slide deck, and kind of the format and structure of this is she's going to share a feature of a function, and there will be an audio video clip that she'll play that will be anywhere from 3.5 to 5 minutes long. And then she's going to stop the recording, and that'll be a time to pause and kind of check in with everyone and see if you have questions. So if as the recording is going, please stay on mute, but note your questions and know that before we move on to the next slide, she is going to check in with you to see if there are any questions, and we do want this to be interactive. So please do participate, ask questions, and without further ado, I am going to turn it over to you, Funbi.
Right, thank you, Marla. I really appreciate it, Natalie, for inviting me. So you're welcome to the Advanced Excel training. It's just, for me, an avenue for every one of us to actually improve or learn one little thing to improve ourselves. So I'm going to go straight on. Mala already introduced me, so I'm not going to waste so much time on the introduction any longer. And the agenda for today, we're really looking at Excel tools. And we're going to look at two major features today. And so the agenda is we're going to remind ourselves again of how we can effectively use the functions available on Excel generally. And then we will now zero in on two functions, the pivot table and conditional formatting. At the end of the day, definitely we'll have questions. If you have questions while the presentation is on, you could put it in the chat, or probably when the time is available, we can actually talk about that as well. At the end of the day, we also value your feedback. It's important as we intend to keep improving and impacting positively. So as a manner of introduce Excel again and remind some of us, I mean, we did a survey before we started, and I can see that I'm in the midst of people that are actually very experienced or have a fair knowledge of Excel. So talking about Excel and the features that we have generally, we know that Excel works on data. And how do we, the various functions that are inbuilt in Excel that actually help us to further analyze our data and actually get meaningful information by way of reporting and all that. And these are all usually available through the ribbon, the Excel ribbon. That's where you have the tabs, okay? We have the Excel, the tab, and then we have, within each tab, we have the various icons that actually help us to perform various functions. Like if you want to do a sum of a range and all that. But for this particular learning session, we're going to be looking at the pivot table. And for us to be able to actually have access to pivot table, why would we need a pivot table? We know that Excel has over 1 million rows. So we have the rows where we can capture our data. We also know that the columns, that Excel has columns as well. We can have up to like 256 columns. And we refer to each data that we have within the Excel sheet through the cell address. The cell address, so we're looking at H2 here. And then within the ribbons, a lot of functions that we can do. I'm not going to dwell on that because we are all conversant with this, okay? So looking at the pivot table that we have for today, pivot table helps with quick reporting of data. So in the case where we have so much data that we've collected, pivot table helps to easily arrange our data, to quickly analyze the data, to summarize, sort, reorganize, group, count, and all, whatever we want to do, and a lot more, okay? So we're going to take it one step at a time. How do we actually get our data ready? How do we come up with the pivot chart? Right. So we're going to do this right now. And that is what we're going to. So we have a total number of, let's see how many records, how many rows we're looking at. So we have, this is the very last row. That's 9995 minus 1, which is the header. That's 9994 records. I mean, the rows that we need to quickly come up with a report of the total sales by region. And how do we go about it? That is where we can actually make use of the available tools in Excel pivot table. So we need to first of all prepare our data, make sure that there are no blank rows, there are no blank columns, so that Excel has everything properly defined for it to give us a correct report. Then how do we do that? I'm going to quickly do Control A plus A to define the range that we want, and we're going to define it as a table. So we're going to click on Insert and then click on Table. Okay, so the range has been identified, which is correct, and my table has headers, which is correct. I'm going to say OK, and I want to give my table a name. Okay, we're going to give the table a name by clicking on under the table tools. We can see design here. Let's give it a name. We want to say sales records. It can't be sales, there must be no space. It has to be a compound word, just one word is what you need here to define the table name. So I'm going to put the underscore there, sales records. Okay, that's the name of the table. So that's recognized. Once we have prepared our data, we go on to click on the insert button. So we want to go ahead now and insert the pivot table. Insert pivot table gives us the create pivot table dialog box, and the box says you can see that the name of the table here is sales records already, which is my name, the name of the table that I gave it. And then it says choose where you want we can also use the external data source, but we're not doing that right now. The Excel wants me to choose where I want the pivot table report to be placed. So you have to determine whether you want it on a new worksheet or the existing worksheet. In this case, if you say existing worksheet, you need to define the location, exact location, and you can see Excel goes ahead and notes that. But let us click on the new worksheet and then say, okay. So Excel will go and create a blank pivot table for us to populate as we deem fit. So we're going to have to define our rows and our columns for Excel. And in this case, we already said we already said we want the rows by, I'm going to resize this again so that I can see exactly what's happening here. We want it by region. So if I click on region, Excel will automatically take it to where it presumes I want it to. So if I click on region, Excel takes it to rows, which is perfectly in order. And then at the end of the day, then I need to also have the sales. Okay, so I go on and click on sales. Excel perfectly does that, and that is fine. But where I am not satisfied, I can always drag. For instance, if I want subcategory with it, Excel can place it anywhere it likes. I may say, no, I don't want it here. I want it on the columns. Okay, so but for now, I don't even want it at all. And to do that, I just quickly drag it out and I do. Okay. Does anybody have any question whatsoever before we go on to the next item? All right. So if there's no question for now, I'll go on. So we've talked about how to prepare the data and come up with a pivot table report. So now we're going to be talking about sorting and filtering our data and then cleaning up and all the other housekeeping. Let's listen.
Well, let's look at some of the options that we have to be able to sort, filter, and clean up our data. So to be able to actually format, you just right click on the cell that you want to format. Format cells will format the cell, while the number format will format the entire range. So if we say we want it as a currency, for instance, or let's currency, you say, okay, can say the format for the entire column. At the same time, if we want to sort, we still right click and then we have the option sort largest. So it immediately sorts for us. So we know that the one with the highest sale is the West region and all that. The same thing with for filtering. Once we click on this filter auto sort button and whatever, we can put central. We want only for central. There we go. We just have only the one for central, the information for central. And if we want more than one, we can always click, and that's what we have. Now we can clear this by clicking on the clear filter button. Okay, and that's where we have it. The analyze, if we go up now to the pivot table tools, we have the analyze tab and the design tab. The analyze tab helps us to determine what the content of the reports that we want is all about. And this is achieved by using the field button, which we have done severally. Imagine we want to put category again, we just click here and then he goes there, and whatever, if you want to put subcategory, we can also have it, so but let's assume that for this exercise we don't need that, so I'm going to take that off. So we just bring it off and then off, so we have it as we had before. So that is how we do that. And let's imagine that on the field list pane, we want to, once we have the category and we determine that, okay, we're okay, we don't really need further details, we can actually collapse and clean up our report using this button. Okay, we can clean up our report using this button, and we can see that it collapses that. And if we don't even want to have access to it, we can come to this button and say, so it goes off. So that helps us with cleaning up our data. We can come to the design and then we see the various styles that are there and adopt it. You can have the banded rows, okay? We can have the grand totals, whether we want it off for rows and columns and then it goes off, or whether we want it for on for row. And the same thing applies to subtotals. We're going to be looking at more of that.
Okay, so we're going to be looking at more of that sorting and filtering and cleaning up our report, as it were. The next thing we're going to be looking at, okay, is there any question? Let me just stop sharing now. I can't actually see and feel, when I'm sharing. So I need to know.
Look.
Yeah.
If anyone has any questions, you can use reactions to raise your virtual hand or just unmute. Is everyone good, or does anyone need any clarification on anything?
Yeah. All right.
Okay. I think you're good to go.
All right. So I'll continue from where we stop. So let's go on. Yes.
Okay, so let's imagine that we want to know the total number of records here instead of the sum of sales. So let's right click. We're going to right click here and we're going to say, instead of the sum, show us, we go to value field settings and then we click on count. And if you want average, we can do the same thing. Here we go. We can see that we have 9,994 records. Let's go back to where we were before. So which is sum of sales. Sum of sales was what we had, and then we formatted, we did the number formatting to currency, which was in dollars. Okay, and we saw that when we sorted it, it was west that was coming tops, was first region, the region with the highest sales figures. So let's go back there, and then we want to add some additional records to our data. And these are the records that I have here. Let's imagine we have additional. So we had 9994. Let's imagine we have additional 5 records. And I'm going to just cut that through here, and I'm going to paste it here. Okay. Says it can be done on multiple. So let's just do that. So there we have it. We have additional 5 records here. So we expect that the total number of records will have changed to 9,999 by the time we check on the count. Here we have West as 1 million plus of sales. But here alone, for one of the records that I have here, I have the record as 1 million. So I expect that by the time we add all these, we have East would have gone up to like 1.9 or more than that. And then it's going to be like the one that has the highest sales figures. So I'm going to right click because we need to make sure anytime we change anything in our original table, we have to make sure that it is refreshed in the pivot table to make sure that we have the correct report. So we do that by right clicking on the pivot table. We right click and then we click on refresh. Okay, so once we do that, we can see that East has come up to 1.964. 1.964, that's the highest now. Okay, and we can also count. We can do right click. We can right click on this and say, okay, we want to check the value field setting, and then we have counts. And when we do count, definitely we need it as just number without a decimal place. And that's what we're going to be having. And then we can see that the grand total has changed to the correct number. So we'll go back to the sum and quickly come in here and go to analyze. Anytime we're there, we go to analyze. Sorry. Analyze. We go to analyze and then insert a pivot chart. We go to insert a pivot chart. Let's take the bar and then we say okay. And once we do that, we tidy up our chart. We can right click here and hide all the fields and delete the ones that we don't necessarily need, and this other one as well, and all this inner rulers. Okay, we don't need all those. I'm going to just click it here. So we have it, and then we can tidy up. We can see that this is in the reverse order, the bar chart. So we're going to right click on the axis, format the axis, and say, okay, we want it in the categories in the reverse order. So it comes exactly the way we have it in the pivot. And then finally, we do add the labels. We right click on that and we add our data labels, and we can also change this to region sales. And that is actually how we can always add our we can add it, add a chart title or whatever. It's always there. We can always add, and so that is the way we go about. So we can put region sales, okay, sales chart, and that is it.
Okay, I'm going to stop. So let me stop here. I expect to have maybe 1 or 2 questions, just to make sure that we actually are following or probably we're actually gaining something from this discussion. So we've talked about the creation of the pivot table. We've talked about the addition of new records to the pivot table. We've talked about formatting the report. Is there, I'd like to have a feedback from us, based on some of the things that we've actually talked about now.
Format. Hi, Funbi, this is Anna.
Hi, Anna.
Just the, I'm looking at the formatting where you went in and you did analyze and then you did the graph.
Okay.
Okay, so then from there on, I see that you have the graph and you have all the information on the left-hand side, but if you want to have the entire, like you want to show all the other information, are you going to go back? How do you go back to see the rest of the information? Like you had all the columns for all the different information, and I know you did the formatting and you went to analyze,
Yeah.
and now you have the graph showing, all the different, numbers and so forth. But if you wanted to go back and look at the entire information that you had,
you can always have that. If you want to have that, usually from the grand total figure, once you double click, Excel will show you, Excel will come up, will show you the detailed records that you were working on. Okay. Let me see if I can get any of that here, but I really don't think I have that right now. But we can talk more about that. But once you go to the grand total, where you have the grand total, let me see if I can quickly get that now.
Right, because you have the grand totals. I just wanted to see if you can go back.
We'll do the next
Okay,
one
I'm
in the
sorry.
next
I'm going to
segment.
stop
Thank
this
you.
now. Okay.
Yes.
So this is what I'm talking about. Okay.
Yes.
This grand total, if you double click here, Excel is going to give you. So what detail again do you want to get apart from, is it the records, which
The
will
records,
be
yeah. So if you wanted to show the records, and how do you go back just to show all the other records?
to show all the other records, you just right click on the pivot table.
Okay, so just click on it.
Once you right click, you will get all the functions that you need to work on anything within that table.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that was my question.
Okay.
Because I saw how you went in and you created a graph for the for the totals and the grand total.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any other question? All right, let me go on to the next presentation, which has to do with inserting slicers. Slicers are more like a data filter as well, but it works on the table as well. Please take a listen.
So we're going to go ahead to quickly insert the slicer. To insert the slicer, we need to be within the pivot table. Okay, we go to the analyze. Remember, we have the tools, the pivot tools, the analyze. And then we go to insert slicer. The slicer helps to give us a view, like a filter. So let's assume that we're using the region, okay, to slicing by region. So like we're filtering by region, and we say, okay. So once we have the slicer here, it's automatically linked with the pivot table. So if we say we want just to have a view of the central, so we see that it's just the central view we're looking at. We can take two of this. We see that we have two, and we can always clear the slicer by coming to the clear button here. So once we click on clear, it goes off, and then we have the access to all the information. So that's how you toggle and have some different perspectives. Okay, I don't want to see everything. I want to see only the ones from the east. Okay, and so the sum of that is that, and if there is any other component, it also displays. So that is the slicer option in Excel for us.
All right. Let me stop there and also say that a lot of dashboards actually can come up using the slicer. We didn't have so much time, and we had to do so many other things, and so we're going to go on straight to the conditional formatting. But before then, I still want to ask if there's any other thing, or do I go ahead with conditional formatting?
I have a question. This is Elkai.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes, please.
How can you add formulas to the pivot table? Is it possible?
Yes,
Like if you wanted to add 2 numbers or subtract 2 numbers?
Yes, you can. Yes, you can. We have the calculate field option under Analyze tab. If you go to Analyze tab, okay.
Funbi, hey, are you able to go into Excel and maybe show it visually?
Okay, let me try. 1 second. 1 second. Okay. Let me see.
What do you think, guys, if maybe we don't discuss conditional formatting today and just focus on pivot tables for the remaining of the time? Barbara, you're muted.
Okay,
if
can
we're
you
done
see
at
the
2 o'clock, we
screen?
only have 6 minutes left.
Can we see the screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so here, once we right click on, once we are within the pivot table, we can go to the Analyze tab. Okay, we're able to do a lot with the Analyze tab. Then if we need to add a field for Ilke to answer Ilke's question, you come to Fields. Okay, can you see what I'm showing here?
Yes.
Fields, items, and sets. Okay, you can calculate an item, okay, within a field, an item within a field. Then you can calculate fields across. So these are some of the functions that you can use, okay? And that is, so for instance, let's look at what Anna was asking before. Anna wanted to see some of these other things. 1 second. I go to Analyze, I go to List Fields, okay? And I want to add so many other fields, okay? Now we come here, we can add as many as we want. We are in the region, we can have the city, okay? I clicked on city, and so once I come here, I can see my city. I'm sorry, this, okay. So we can see, Anna, you can see this. Now, if I want to add, for instance, I want to add all the sales from Akron and Allentown, okay? I want them as just one figure, okay? We can come to Analyze and say field, okay? It's an item within that field, okay? Sales field. So we can say calculate item. Okay, so what do I want to add? I want to add on the city, let's say within the city, I have to click on city. Okay, I want to add, I said Akron. Okay, so this is going to be equal to, okay, so Akron, right? Plus, I said Allentown. Let's just imagine. Okay, so I'm just saying Akron Allen. So we need to give the item a name. Okay, so we can say Akron, whatever we want to call him, Allen. Okay, so we have that. So we're going to say add that item to that field. Okay, so once we add it, okay. Formulas can only refer to items in the same field as the calculated item. All right, so it's not, we're in the region. So we need to go to, okay, let's assume that we want Eastern. Let's say.
Excuse me, Funbi.
Funbi,
Yes,
When you move,
you're
when you move away
having,
from, go ahead.
you said what?
yeah, I was just gonna say, when you lean in, we have a hard time hearing you. So just wanted to let you know that.
Yeah, when you move out of the screen, we can't hear you.
Oh, you can't hear me.
Yeah, when you lean, right, when you lean like that.
Am I fine now?
Absolutely.
Okay, all right. So this is how we come about. Let me just pick whichever one I can add within. I need to check let's check the table again. So, but those are the functions that we use. So let's imagine that on our table, okay, let's say let's come up with a computation. Let's look for the average. Let's look for the average sales. Let's imagine that we want to look for our average sales. So if we go to the pivot format and then we say, okay, let's say equals, okay, I just want something that is, let's say average sales.
And not to add pressure, just to let you know, we have about 1 more minute. Do we want to go over? I don't know where people are at. I want you to be able to complete sharing this, but I just want to let you know, and then we'll look and see if people want to stay on past this.
Okay. Equal to, equal to.
Yeah, so while Funbi is looking for the right formula there,
Let's say
I suggest, yeah,
sorry,
so
quantity, let's say quantity times, okay?
Yeah,
I'm just
Funbi, one second, Funbi, if I may. I think it's okay for most of the people to stay over a little bit, maybe let's say some 10-15 minutes, but I'm not sure we want to cover in this remaining time, we want to cover a new topic of conditional formatting. Maybe we can leave it to have a separate workshop on that one, because pivot table is quite a deep one. What do you guys think? Should we leave out conditional formatting for some other time? Who is in favor of this?
Yes, I agree.
Otherwise, we will be rushing and we will not be able to learn a lot. Okay, so Funbi, for your information, let's do conditional formatting at some other time. So now you can relax and focus on pivot tables for now, okay?
All right. Okay, so for Ilke, so imagine we want to come up with average sales. So what I've done is sales divided by the quantity, okay? So let's see, there's reference to, it comes up with, okay, we will figure it out. Let's say insert to field. Oh, all right, so 1 second. So
And Funbi, just a reminder, when you lean in like that, we can't hear you.
There you go. Thank you.
okay. Average sales, well, sale, it's really, well, maybe we need to use a different data. This is, I need to have this there. We can always right click, okay. Or let's say, let's just look for something times. It's still complaining about fields. Okay, this is item. You know what? Let's go back to calculate field. This will work. Okay, this is going to be, because we don't have so many items to work on. I guess that's why. So let's look at this. Okay, so average, I'll just try to use that as, and then we say, okay. So we see that that goes, okay? And it comes up with that information, okay, by, just by the pivot table, okay? But we can always check and confirm, but because it's a field, okay, when we have columns, I mean, when we have it as calculate item, the calculate item is for the particular field, within the field. The item is within that particular record. So the field is what worked here, right? Okay.
Yes, I got
You
it.
have an
Thank you so
idea.
much.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. This was very useful.
All right, thank you. All right, so that is probably, we can do a lot more things with the pivot table functions in Excel, a lot more. So we can do calculations, we can do a lot of things. All right, so finally, let me just, I hope we're done with what we're sharing. All right, so we are not going to be doing this for now, okay?
Did you have more on the pivot tables to show? Did that cover everything around pivot tables that you were planning on covering in this session?
Yes, please. Yes, please. That actually covers it. That actually covers, and conditional formatting that I have is actually maybe like 3 minutes, because I went straight to the advanced formatting and not the normal formatting that we all are actually aware of. So I could just quickly play that for whatever, if there is seat time, but if there's no time, we can continue next time.
Maybe if it is just 3 minutes, you say, maybe why not showing it right now if it is really quick?
Okay, it's fast.
If you think it does not deserve its own session.
Oh, well, let's see. So this is the ribbon for that. For conditional formatting, we come through the home tab, and when we go through the conditional formatting group. And so if we come here, we need to define the applicable range and then trigger the cell by defining the condition. And it's definitely an alerter. Okay, so I'm going to just play this.
All right, so let's finalize on the conditional formatting. Now that we have our city report, we want to highlight all the New York City records and give it a color filling of, let's say, green. Okay, so we're going to come here. Let's first of all look at the design again and give it a normal design here. And then highlight the range. We need to define the range for Excel, and then come to home tab, go to conditional formatting, set up the new rule. Okay, set up the new rule, and it's gonna be equal to, remember that we wanted E2 equal to New York City. And the format that we want to apply is a green. Okay. So because we're taking the entire worksheet, it's always advisable we start from 1. So I'm going to do that and I'm going to apply that. So let us see what has happened to New York State. New York. I'm going to de-highlight all the other ones. And here we go. So we can see that the New York City records have been correctly highlighted in green. And so that is how we do conditional formatting, to highlight, to alert us that these are the records that are in this category.
All right, so that's actually the advanced conditional formatting for us, okay? So I hope we get something out of that. We need to define the parameters, and at the end of the day, format once the parameters are actually true. So that is conditional formatting.
So we come to the,
I'm sorry. Okay, so that is all. Honestly, it's time for questions, feedback, whatever. Yeah. Any other question on conditional formatting? If you want me to show something on conditional formatting, I I'm in a position to do that for you.
First, thank you so much, Funbi. I always admire how how well you present the material as a trainer. It's very easy for us to follow. It's really great. I totally admire you as a trainer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So my observation is with the pivot tables, even if we don't remember everything you showed us, what I do remember is it always makes sense to right click and see what's under the drop down menu when you right click. So we can all play around with the right clicks and see for ourselves which of those functions can work for us, right?
Yes, yes.
So right click is one. And then there is also, whenever you are in the pivot table, on the ribbon, there is a section called Analyze, and there are also several interesting things under that one, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so these are my takeaways. Anyone else, any your takeaways?
I had never known about the slicer. That
Oh,
was new to me,
slicer, great. I like
which
this.
is
Yeah.
really a
Mm.
cool function, and it just shows the flexibility of pivot tables, that there's so much you can do. But it seems like you have to remember, if you're not the only one working in the data set, anytime you start to work in it, to always refresh, right? Is that like a good best practice in case any of the records have changed? Is that like a good first step if you're sharing a data set with anyone
Right.
before you start working in it? So yeah, I just think it's cool, like just how many things you can do and the flexibility it gives you. So.
Yeah, it actually helps with the management information systems, you know, so where you come up with various scenarios and you want to check what's happening. So that also helps
Right.
them.
Jennifer, do you want to share what's your takeaways? What are your takeaways?
It's a little overwhelming in a way because I know there's so much you can do. So I'm just trying to process it so that if I have to go in and do something in Excel, this looks more familiar to me. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Jennifer, I'm in the same position. I'm learning a lot of this in the class. So the more I see it, or the more I'm aware it's there, that's a huge help. So hearing about these specific parts of it are very helpful. Thank you.
Sue, is there anything that you are taking away from this session? Yeah, I'm not sure if Sue is currently here. Yeah.
Well, I've actually used, I think, all of the things that Funbi showed us in the past, but it was so long ago, I wouldn't have any idea how to get started, and then I would be able to pick it up. So this was very, very helpful as a refresher for me. I was like, oh yeah, you can do, oh yeah, you can do that too. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Funbi. Sue, you're back with us, right?
Yeah, I found my microphone. Thank you. Funbi, this is really helpful. I'm with most of you who I've never used pivot tables. I've kind of done things the kind of slow way, I guess you could say, you know, very plotting. And this is really helpful, especially when you have a lot of data points, which is really great. And because I'm on a Mac, I don't have a right click. So I have an extra layer of challenge, but it can be surmounted.
I'm sorry,
I have
Sue,
confidence.
what are you using instead of a mouse?
I have a Mac and we don't have a right click.
Whatever we have on the right click, the options we have is actually all of them are available on the Analyze and the Design tab. Okay, it's just that the right clicking actually makes them faster. That's it.
That's also good to know.
So I always have to kind of find those. And sometimes it depends on what you're comfortable with too, because I got very comfortable with the right click having a PC, but yeah.
I have a feeling there's a way around that, whether it's using 3 fingers or using a specific spot on the, so you might want to look into that if you're used to using the right click.
I think it's a double
You
click.
can get a mouse that you can do right click with. So yeah, but I also I also learn when I need to do something with it. So this is a really good
Right.
introduction to see what I can do, and then I'll get a data thing and play around with it. So
Okay, so Funbi, thank you so much for this session, and I hope we can again do a session sometime on Excel, because there are so many other functions we can learn from Excel, right?
There's so many. There's so many.
Mm-hmm.
VLOOKUP is one which everybody uses, I believe. It's always useful. VLOOKUP. There's so many macros, VBA.
So yeah, macros is interesting, and also just functions. Many people don't feel very comfortable with using functions in Excel. Maybe we can also do a session on that topic sometime.
Yeah.
Right?
I
Right.
definitely
So-
like the macros. I've never done a macro, and from what I
Yeah.
understand, it's very easy to do, but it's just intimidating for me, I guess.
What I also liked doing some time ago in Excel is writing SQL queries, connecting to a database and writing SQL queries. That was lovely. So we can also, there is so much you can dive into with Excel, really. Yeah. So guys, let's wrap up. Let's wrap up and let's give the microphone to Marla, and I will stop recording, I guess, at this point.